The smartest thing Annihilation does is simple and unsettling. It treats alien contact as an environmental process, not a conversation. No message arrives. Nothing explains itself. The world just starts changing, and it keeps changing. Alex Garland's film, released in 2018, begins with a disappearance. Kane, a soldier on a classified mission, vanishes for a year. Then he walks back into his home, alive, but wrong. He is pale. He is confused. He is emotionally flat. His body is failing fast. That return triggers the most believable move in the whole story. Authorities isolate him, and they isolate Lena too. They are taken to a secured medical facility at the edge of something called the Shimmer. It is an expanding, iridescent boundary on the coast. It began when a meteor-like object struck a lighthouse. The zone spreads outward, swallowing forest, swamp, and abandoned settlements. Teams go in. Nobody comes back intact. Kane is the first apparent survivor, and even that word survivor feels shaky. Lena is a cellular biologist and a former soldier. She volunteers for the next expedition. Alongside her are a psychologist, a physicist, a paramedic, and a geomorphologist. They enter a place where radio fails, time becomes hard to track, and living things don't stay in their categories. The movie gives the Shimmer a signature word: refraction. Inside the zone, the characters say, the Shimmer refracts light. It refracts radio. And, in the film's most famous leap, it refracts DNA. That phrase is the film's poetic hinge and its biggest scientific category error. Refraction is a wave phenomenon. Light bends when it crosses from air into glass or water because its speed changes in a different medium. That is why a straw looks broken in a glass. That is how lenses focus an image. Even exotic engineered materials still keep refraction in the realm of waves and media. DNA is not a wave. DNA is a chemical polymer. It changes through molecular processes: copying errors, repair failures, recombination, viral insertion, chromosomal rearrangements, epigenetic changes, selection across generations. None of that is optical. So if you take refracting DNA literally, it collapses physics into metaphor. There is a more charitable reading, and it is worth holding on to. Maybe the Shimmer has multiple effects. It distorts electromagnetic propagation, and separately, it rewrites biology. The team, lacking better language, calls both effects refraction. Under that interpretation, the dialogue becomes a human approximation under extreme uncertainty, not a textbook claim. Still, when the film wants you to feel the Shimmer's rule, it shows you animals and plants that look like biological mashups. The first big example is the alligator with shark-like teeth. It is a terrific image. It says in one glance that traits are crossing boundaries. Horizontal gene transfer is routine in bacteria. Viruses move genetic material between hosts. Evolution is not always a neat branching tree. But the film compresses an enormous amount of development and anatomy into an instant shortcut. Teeth are not a single swappable shark trait. Tooth shape, number, replacement pattern, jaw mechanics, and mineralization come from complex gene networks interacting with tissue development. A shark's dentition is part of a whole evolutionary and developmental system. An alligator cannot simply pick up a shark's teeth and express them as a functional adult weapon without coordinated changes across the skull, the jaw, and the tooth replacement machinery. Timing is another issue. Major anatomical traits are usually built during development, not retrofitted onto a fully formed adult. Some vertebrates replace teeth throughout life, yes, but building a new dentition that actually works with a different jaw is a huge coordinated change, not a casual mutation. There is also a scientific humility problem in the scene. The character infers shark biology from teeth alone, but morphology is not proof of gene transfer. Similar structures can arise through convergent evolution when unrelated organisms face similar pressures. Without sequencing, tissue analysis, and careful comparison, shark teeth is a field impression, not a diagnosis. The film pushes even harder with its most haunting botanical image: human-shaped plants, a grove of flowering growth arranged like human silhouettes, as if the landscape is remembering bodies. It is visually gorgeous and scientifically almost impossible, at least by ordinary genetics. Plants and animals share deep cellular machinery. They both use DNA and RNA, proteins, membranes, and metabolism. But their body plans are profoundly different. Plants build themselves through meristems, cell walls, and modular branching. Animals develop through embryonic patterning, mobile cells, muscles, nerves, and integrated organs. You cannot paste human DNA into a plant and expect a human outline to appear, because genes are not standalone blueprints. They only make sense inside regulatory systems, with the right promoters, transcription factors, cellular context, and developmental history. When Josie appears to accept a transformation into plant life, the same problem returns, but sharper. If a human is becoming plant-like, what happens to the circulatory system, the immune system, the nervous system, bone, brain, microbiome? A little skin-level growth could be imagined as infection, symbiosis, or tumor-like proliferation. A full conversion is a total rewrite of multicellular identity. Then comes the screaming bear, one of the most effective horror creations in modern science fiction. It kills a team member. Later, when it attacks again, it seems to cry out with the dead woman's voice. The implication feels like memory has been transferred through predation. No known biological route supports that. As shown, some animals can mimic sounds, predators can learn, but reproducing a specific human scream with high fidelity requires vocal anatomy and neural control a bear does not have. And preserving the emotional signature of a dying scream suggests recording, storage, and replay of information, not digestion and mutation. If you want a mechanism that fits the film's dream logic, the shimmer itself is the recorder. The bear becomes a speaker, or a node, carrying an environmental echo. In that version, the horror is not genetics. It is signal processing, trauma routed through biology as a medium. All of that prepares you for the lighthouse, where the film leaves biology behind almost completely. Lena watches a video of Kane speaking to a duplicate of himself. One version dies by phosphorus grenade. Later, Lena encounters a humanoid mimic that mirrors her movements, slowly taking on her form. This is not cloning as biology understands it. Cloning still requires development time. A body has to be built cell by cell. Organs must be organized. Nerves must wire up. The immune system calibrates. A microbiome colonizes. A mind learns. You do not get an adult double by photocopying a surface. The mimic raises a further control problem. It mirrors movement before it has recognizable eyes, muscles, or a nervous system. To match Lena, it needs sensing and actuation. To become Lena, it needs to map her anatomy, and possibly her cognition, into a new body. That is not mutation. That is matter and information engineering, wearing biological imagery. Yet even here, the film makes a mature choice. It stays ambiguous. The Kane who returns may not be a perfect copy. Lena may not be fully herself at the end. Glowing eyes suggest alteration, not a clean replacement. That ambiguity is philosophically honest. It leaves you with the question the science cannot answer on screen. What exactly counts as the same person? For all its scientific overreach, Annihilation also gets several big things right in spirit, and those are useful for educators and science communicators. First, it treats mutation as change, not improvement. A lot of movies use mutation as an upgrade button. Faster, stronger, smarter. Here, change produces beauty, instability, predation, and death. That is closer to real evolution. Evolution has no foresight. It does not aim at perfection. It only filters what can replicate under local conditions. Second, the film uses cancer more thoughtfully than most science fiction does. Lena's early lecture matters. Cancer is not an invading alien by default. It is self, turning strange. Cells divide, control breaks down, boundaries fail inside the organism. The shimmer is not literally cancer, because it affects ecosystems and creates organized forms, but cancer is a strong metaphor for unstable identity, uncontrolled growth, and self-destruction that comes from within. Third, the shimmer looks right, even if it cannot be explained cleanly. Its surface borrows from real optical experiences: soap bubbles, oil slicks, heat haze, iridescent films. You instantly read it as a medium that alters light. And the connection to communication failure is plausible in broad terms. If an environment scatters or absorbs electromagnetic waves, radio becomes unreliable. Change the medium and you change what can be known. The most realistic institutional response is also one of the bleakest. Quarantine, perimeter control, secrecy, repeated expeditions driven by desperation. That is how real systems behave under existential uncertainty. The first question is not, what does it mean? The first question is, can it spread? Can it kill? Can it be contained? Finally, the team's psychological breakdown feels earned. They lose time. They wake up with missing memories. They cannot trust instruments or each other. In a normal expedition, trust is survival gear. In the Shimmer, trust collapses because identity itself becomes questionable. The environment does not need a magic madness ray. Isolation, fear, grief, and ambiguity can do plenty on their own. So here is the takeaway that lingers. Annihilation science is often wrong in mechanism, but sharp in mood. It suggests that the most alien thing we might meet is not a mind, but a process, and the hardest part is realizing you are already inside it.